Hey guys, tonight we are setting sail into a world that promised ultimate freedom, but delivered its own set of brutal rules. We're heading into the Golden Age of Piracy, not as a captain, but as a nobody. A fresh face on a deck slick with sea, water and questionable morals. And let's be honest, with your clean hands and modern sensibilities, you'd probably be tossed overboard before you even learned the difference between a jib and a mainsail. It was a tough world, and tonight we're going to explore a side of it that's rarely discussed: the unspoken, dangerous, and often painful pressures of simply looking the part. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop me a line in the comments and let me know what city you're listening from, and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The salt spray tastes like a fresh start, but it burns your eyes. It's been weeks since you made the choice to leave a life that was suffocating you, not with its danger, but with its predictability. You can still feel the ghost of it: the damp, cramped quarters of the naval vessel you served on, the constant, biting discipline for the most minor infractions. You remember the food biscuits so hard you had to soak them in watered-down grog just to break them, the endlessly salted beef that seemed to suck all the moisture from your body. That was your life, a cog in a great, grinding imperial machine, where your only reward for a year of back-breaking labor was a pittance in pay and the looming threat of the cat o' nine tails for speaking out of turn. So when the opportunity came, you took it. It wasn't a grand, heroic mutiny. It was a quiet desertion in a humid, bustling port somewhere in the Caribbean, a hushed conversation in a tavern that smelled of stale rum and sweat, a nervous journey in a leaky rowboat under the cloak of a moonless night, and then you scrambled aboard this new vessel, a ship that felt both more chaotic and somehow more alive than the sterile, rigid world of the Navy. This is a pirate ship. Freedom, or so you thought. The first thing you notice is that no one here is marching in time. There's no crisp snap of an officer's command, no rigid posture of deference. Men lounge. They argue. They work with a kind of grudging efficiency that comes from shared purpose rather than fear. This is the democracy of the sea you heard whispers about, where the captain is elected and the spoils are shared according to a written code. It's a powerful idea, and it's the reason you're here. You believed in the promise of that black flag. Speaking of the flag, the one flying from this mast isn't the one you expected. You'd always pictured the classic skull and crossbones, the universal symbol of terror. But this one is different. It's a stark-white skeleton on a black background, holding an hourglass in one bony hand and a bleeding heart impaled on a spear in the other. One of the older sailors, a man with a web of sun wrinkles around his eyes, grunts when he sees you staring. He tells you that every captain worth his salt has his own Jolly Roger, his own personal brand of intimidation. The famous calico jackrack amused a skull with two crossed cutlasses. Bartholomew Roberts, a man they call Black Bart, had a flag depicting him standing on two skulls. One labeled A BHA Barbadian's head and the other AM HA Martinican's head, as a personal vendetta against the governors of those islands. The flag isn't just a warning, it's a story. You feel a flicker of excitement. This is real. This is the adventure you craved. You are part of something that scorns the rules of kings and empires. You are free from the powdered wigs and starched collars of the world you left behind. But as you lean against the railing, the wind whipping your unkempt hair across your face, you catch a glimpse of yourself in a small, salt-stained puddle of water on the deck. Your face is soft, unmarked. Your hands, though calloused from naval ropes, are whole. Your clothes are the plain, functional garb of a common sailor. You look like what you are: a runaway, a novice. And as you look around at the other men, at their hardened faces and dragged, almost theatrical attire, a cold, unfamiliar feeling begins to creep in. It's a feeling that you are utterly, completely out of place. You thought you'd escaped a world of rigid expectations, but you're beginning to suspect you've just traded one set for another, one that might be even more demanding. The motivation for all this, you wonder, what truly drives these men? Historians still argue about it today, whether piracy was a desperate cry for a living wage, a kind of primitive political rebellion against the tyranny of empires, or just a manifestation of pure, unadulterated human greed. As you stand there, you don't have an answer. You just know you're here now. And the price of belonging is a currency you don't yet possess. The feeling of being an outsider doesn't fade. It solidifies, hardening in your gut like one of those Navy biscuits. You spend your first few days trying to be useful, which is another way of saying you try to stay out of the way. You learn to climb the rat lines without looking down, your knuckles white, the rough rope biting into your soft palms. You learn to swab the deck, not with the resentful drudgery of a naval raiding, but with the focused energy of someone who knows that a clean deck is a safe deck in a fight. You learn the names of the men, or at least the names they use here. One-Eyed Jack, Billy Bones, a quiet, massive man they just call the Swede. It's during a moment of rare quiet, below deck, that you find it. The living quarters are a chaotic tangle of hammocks strung so close together you can smell what the man next to you had for dinner. The air is thick with the funk of unwashed bodies, damp wood, and the ever-present, cloying smell of bilge water. You're rummaging through your meager sea chest, making sure your few possessions are still there, when you spot it in a larger, open crate of recently acquired loot. It's a small, silver hand mirror, its back tarnished with green oxidation, the glass surprisingly intact. It was likely plucked from a fine lady's travel case on the last merchant ship they took. Curiosity gets the better of you. You haven't truly seen your own face in weeks. You pick it up, the cool metal a strange sensation in your hand. Turning it over, you angle it toward the weak, swinging light of a nearby lantern. And there you are. The disappointment is immediate and sharp. It's not vanity, it's fear. The face looking back at you is a stranger to this world. Your skin, while tanned by the sun, is unbroken. There are no jagged white lines telling stories of bar fights or swordplay. Your eyes, though tired, like the hard, weary cynicism you see in the others. Your jaw is clean-shaven, not out of discipline, but because you haven't yet cultivated the fearsome beard that seems to be a prerequisite for respect. You look harmless. You look like prey. A shadow falls over you, seeing a ghost. Boy, it's the old sailor from your first day, the one who explained the flag. His name is Silas, and his face is a roadmap of a hard life. A scar cuts through his left eyebrow, and his nose has been broken more than once. H.E.S. not looking at you with malice, but with a kind of weary amusement. You quickly put the mirror down, just surprised. He grunts, taking up a coil of rope. A smooth face on a ship like this is an invitation. Tells everyone you ain't seen a real fight. Tells them you don't know which end of a cutlass to hold. Makes some of the meaner sorts wonder what you're worth. He pauses, his gaze locking onto yours, and not in a good way. His words hang in the foul air, more chilling than any officer's threat. On the naval ship, your anonymity was your safety. Here, your lack of a reputation, of a visible history written in scars, is your single greatest liability. Later that day, you see the proof that this free society is anything but. Nailed to the mainmast is a piece of sailcloth, covered in crude, looping script. It's the ship's articles. You sidle closer to read them. These are the rules, the pirate code you heard about. It details the division of spoils: 1 share for a crewman, a share and a half for the quartermaster, 2 for the captain. It lists punishments for infractions: marooned for theft from a shipmate, death for bringing a woman aboard in disguise. There's even a form of workman's compensation, a handsome purse of silver for the loss of a limb. Historians still debate the true nature of these articles. Were they a form of floating democracy, A radical social experiment born from the oppressed? Or were they just pragmatic business contracts designed to keep a crew of volatile criminals from murdering each other before the voyage was profitable? Looking at the crude lettering, you suspect it's a bit of both. You realize the truth. This is a world governed by two sets of laws, the written one on the mast, and the unwritten one that Silas just explained to you, the law of appearance. And it's not just your face, it's your overall lack of grind. A strange but true tidbit of life at sea was that being too clean was suspicious. While pirates weren't necessarily the filthy beasts of caricature, they would wash with salt water and rainwater when they could. A certain level of weathered-in dirt was a sign of experience. It meant you were accustomed to the work, the tar, the grit. You hadn't just stepped off a merchant vessel. You weren't soft. Your clean-shaven face and relatively clean clothes marked you as a greenhorn just as surely as a naval uniform would have. As you stand there, the sea breeze feels different now. It's no longer the wind of freedom. It's a cold, judgmental gust, examining you and finding you wanting. That mirror didn't just show you your reflection. It showed you your first real task on this ship. You have to destroy the man in that mirror. You need to look like you belong. And belonging, you're starting to realize, is going to hurt. The lesson in appearances sinks in fast. You start observing not just what the men do, but what they wear, and how they wear it. You had assumed pirate fashion was a haphazard affair, a random collection of stolen rags. But you quickly learn there's a method to the madness, a kind of unspoken uniform designed for a single purpose: intimidation. It's not about practicality, and it's certainly not about comfort. It's a walking, talking threat. You see it in the way they adapt clothing. A fine gentleman's coat, stolen from a captured ship, is ripped and frayed, not from neglect, but intentionally, to show contempt for the world it came from. Brightly colored sashes, usually made of silk or satin, are tied around waists. They aren't just for decoration, they act as a sort of makeshift weight belt, helping to support the back during the heavy lifting of loading cannons or hauling supplies. More importantly, they are a convenient place to tuck a pistol or a dagger, keeping weapons close at hand. The baggy trousers, often cut off at the knee, are not a fashion statement, but a practical one. They allow for freedom of movement when climbing rigging or swarming over the side of another vessel. Tight pants could get you killed, but even this practicality is layered with performance. The men cultivate a look of dangerous disarray. It's a carefully constructed carelessness. You decide to make your first change. Your simple sailor's trousers and plain linen shirt feel like a uniform of subservience. During the next trade on a small merchant brig, amidst the chaos of looting, you don't go for coin or jewels. You hunt for clothes. You find a trunk belonging to a ship's officer. Inside are starched white shirts, breeches of fine wool, and a heavy brocade waistcoat. Back on your own ship, you don't put them on as they are. You take your knife and deliberately slit the sleeves of the shirt, letting the fabric billow. You slice the fine breeches just below the knee, letting the edges fray. The waistcoat you leave as is, a splash of stolen luxury against the rough, modified clothes. It feels ridiculous, like a child playing dress-up. But when you walk on deck, you notice a subtle shift. A few of the men give you a nod of approval. You're not one of them yet, but you're starting to speak their language. A weird detail you discover is about earrings. You see many of the older sailors wearing a single gold or silver hoop. You'd always thought it was just a bit of flashy jewelry, but Silas, in a rare talkative mood, tells you the belief behind it. Some sailors swore that piercing the earlobe with a precious metal improved their eyesight, a claim that has absolutely no scientific basis. Others saw it as a form of insurance. The value of the gold or silver in the earring was meant to pay for a proper Christian burial if their body washed ashore in some foreign land. It was a morbid, yet pragmatic, piece of adornment. Historians are still divided on the true prevalence and purpose of these earrings. Was it widespread tradition or a romantic myth? But on this ship, the men believe it. It's another piece of the uniform, a symbol that you've accepted the risks and are prepared for the consequences. The most crucial part of this unspoken dress code, however, is what you carry. It's not enough to look threatening, you have to be actively armed at all times. Not just a knife at your belt, but a visible, bristling array of weaponry. The goal isn't just to be ready for a fight, but to look so ready for a fight that most people would rather just give you what you want. This is deterrence theory at its most personal level. You watch the quartermaster, a man named Israel, who seems to be a walking arsenal. He has 2 pistols tucked into his sash, another on a sling across his chest, a cutlass at his hip, and a long, wicked-looking dagger strapped to his boot. He moves with a slight clank and jingle of metal. He is a mobile statement of violence. You know what you need to do next. Your only weapon is a small knife, barely suitable for cutting rope. In the communal pile of weapons, you find what you're looking for. A heavy cutlass with a basket hilt to protect the hand, its blade nicked and stained, and a flintlock pistol, long and cumbersome. It's not the sleek, efficient weapon you might imagine. These early firearms were notoriously unreliable. They were slow to load, prone to misfiring in damp conditions, and wildly inaccurate beyond a few paces. In a real battle, a pirate was more likely to fire 1 shot than throw the pistol at his enemy's head and draw his sword. The pistol's primary value was psychological. It was the loud bang, the puff of smoke, the initial shock and awe. You take them. You find a strip of worn leather to use as a sash and another to fashion a crude baldric to sling across your shoulder. As you strap them on, the weight is immediate and surprising. This isn't the balanced, disciplined weight of a soldier's kit. It's a clumsy, awkward burden. But as you walk on deck, the weight feels solid. It's a physical manifestation of your intent. You're no longer just a runaway sailor. You are a man who carries a cutlass and a pistol. You are starting to build the facade. And in the world of pirates, the facade is everything. The weight is more than just physical. It's a constant, nagging presence. The cutlass slaps against your leg with every step. A clumsy, metallic heartbeat. The pistol, tucked into your new sash, digs into your side when you sit and feels precariously loose when you have to climb. You quickly realize that being a walking armory is, to put it mildly, deeply uncomfortable. You try to mimic the casual swagger of the other men, but your movements are stiff and self-conscious. You feel like an imposter, weighed down by props you don't yet know how to use. The first time you try to draw the cutlass with any kind of speed, you fumble the heavy hilt and nearly drop it, earning a snort of derision from a passing crewman. Your face burns with shame, but you clench your jaw, slide the sword back into its sheath, and try again when no one is looking. This is your new training regimen. In stolen moments, below deck, or on night watch, you practice. You draw the cutlass, feeling its heft, its balance. It's not a dueling sword, elegant and precise. It's a chopper, a brutal piece of sharpened steel designed for close, messy work. You practice the lunge, the parry, the sweeping slash that seems to be the favored move in a deck-clearing brawl. Your muscles ache in new ways, the strain of wielding the heavy blade burning in your shoulder and wrist. The pistol is another challenge entirely. You learn to load it a precise measure of black powder down the barrel, a lid bowl wrapped in a small cloth patch, all tamped down with a ramrod. Then you prime the pan with a finer grain of powder, close the frizzen, and cock the hammer. The whole process is slow, deliberate, and impossible to do in the heat of a fight. This confirms what you suspected: it's a one-shot weapon. Its true power lies in the moment before it's fired. It's about the act of leveling that heavy barrel at someone, the cold promise of the click-clack as you pull back the hammer. You spend an afternoon with a few other new recruits, practicing firing at old crates tossed overboard. The kick is ferocious, a jarring jolt that travels up your arm and into your shoulder. The explosion is deafening, a cloud of acrid, sulfurous smoke momentarily blinding you. Your first shot goes wild, splashing into the sea a good 10 feet wide of the target. It's a humbling experience. These weapons, the very symbols of pirate power, are unwieldy, inaccurate, and frankly, dangerous to the user. A strange bit of pirate lore you pick up is about their supposed marksmanship. The romantic stories often depict pirates as crack shots, able to pick off a ship's captain from a swaying deck. The reality was the complete opposite. Most pirates were arable shots. They had little opportunity for formal training, and gunpowder and shot were too precious to waste on target practice. Their strategy was volume, not accuracy. A boarding party would unleash a volley of pistol fire at close range, hoping the sheer noise, smoke, and chaos would sow enough confusion to make the sword work easier. The real skill wasn't in aiming, but in being able to reload quickly under pressure, a skill few truly mastered. The weight of these accessories becomes a part of your daily existence. It's a burden you choose to carry, a constant reminder of the image you're trying to project. Historians still argue about the true load out of the average pirate. Did they really bristle with weapons like a storybook illustration? Or was a simple cutlass and knife the more common reality looking at the men around you? It seems the former is true, but it's driven by bravado more than tactics. Men like Israel, the quartermaster, carry an absurd number of pistols, not because they intend to fire them all, but because strapping on more weapons is like adding another medal to a general's chest. It's a visual resume of your ferocity. You learn to live with the discomfort. You adjust the sash so the pistol doesn't gouge your ribs. You learn to walk in a way that stops the cutlass from banging against every wall and doorway. The weight starts to feel less like a burden and more like a part of you, an extension of your body. It changes the way you stand, the way you move. It forces a certain posture, a slight lean, a readiness. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, it starts to work. The other crewmen stop looking at you like a lost child. The snide remarks lessen. You're still a greenhorn, but you're a greenhorn who carries a sword and a gun. You have adopted the silhouette of a pirate. You are starting to fill the outline you've chosen, but you also feel a growing unease. This heavy, clanking costume of violence is a shell. And you know, sooner or later, something will happen that will force you to prove you're more than just the shell. The weight on your shoulders feels less like a choice and more like a promise. A dangerous promise you might be called upon to keep. The promise is called in sooner than you expect, and not in the way you imagined. It's not a glorious battle with cannons roaring and men yelling. It's the sky. One afternoon, the air goes nerving still. The sea, usually a restless landscape of peaks and troughs, flattens into a sheet of oily, gray glass. The sun is blotted out by a bruised-looking sky that seems to press down on the ship, suffocating it. The older sailors, men like Silas, move with a new urgency. They stare at the horizon, sniffing the air like animals sensing a predator. There are no orders shouted, just a shared, instinctual understanding. Batten down the hatches, secure the cannons, tie down everything that can move. A storm is coming, a bad one. When it hits, it's with the fury of a biblical plague. The world dissolves into a screaming chaos of wind and water. Rain doesn't fall, it drives sideways in horizontal sheets that sting your skin like needles. Waves that were once gentle swells rise into monstrous, moving mountains of dark water that crash over the deck, trying to sweep everything and everyone into the churning sea. Your carefully constructed pirate image is instantly forgotten. This is not about intimidation, it's about survival. You're hauling on ropes. Your hands roll, your muscles screaming in protest. The ship groans around you, the timbers creaking like the bones of some dying beast. The wind shrieks through the rigging, a high-pitched, terrifying wail that seems to scrape at your sanity. And your accessories are no longer symbols of power. They are deadly liabilities. The heavy cutlass at your hip, once a source of confidence, now becomes a clumsy anchor as a massive wave slams into the ship. sending you skidding across the slick, tilting deck. The sword gets caught in a coil of loose rope. For a terrifying second, you are snagged, helpless, as another wall of water bears down on you. You manage to wrench yourself free just in time, the rope burning a line across your leg. Your pistol, tucked in your sash, is a waterlogged lump of useless metal. Even if by some miracle the powder inside stayed dry, trying to use it in this maelstrom would be suicide. But the immediate danger is its weight. It pulls at your waist, trying to drag you down, to unbalance you at the worst possible moments. You see it happen to another man, a swaggering brute named Finn who always wore two pistols slung high on his chest. As he scrambles to secure a flapping piece of sail, the ship lurches violently. The butt of one of his pistols catches on the edge of the mainmast. The force of the jolt, combined with the snag, twists his body at an unnatural angle. You hear a sickening crack over the roar of the storm, and he crumples to the deck, his leg bent in a way a leg should never bend. His own fashion statement has just broken his femur. Two other sailors drag him below, his face a mask of white-hot agony. This is the hidden cost of the pirate aesthetic. The very things meant to project an image of fearsome competence become treacherous hindrances in the environment a pirate actually lives in. A ship's deck during a storm or a chaotic battle is a tangle of ropes, deer, and bodies. Anything that can snag, catch, or trip you up is a potential death sentence. That flowing, ripped gentleman's coat a perfect net to get caught in the rigging. That bandolier of pistols a great way to get hung up on a splintered rail as you're trying to dodge a swinging spar. Historians often focus on the weapons of pirates in the context of combat, but their role in daily life and daily danger is often overlooked. There's a debate about how much of the bristling with arms look was a constant state versus a dress. For battle situation, some academics argue that for day-to-day sailing, the crew would have been more practically attired, saving the foe, intimidating get up for when a prize was sighted. But here, in this moment, it's clear that vanity and the need to maintain a constant state of readiness have overridden common sense. The culture demands you look dangerous, even when the most dangerous thing around you is the weather. You learn a valuable lesson in that storm. The most experienced sailors, you notice, have a more streamlined approach. Silas, for instance, has his cutlass, but it's tied down tight. He has one pistol, tucked securely in his belt at the small of his back. Out of the way, he has chosen survival over swagger. As you cling to a railing, the cold seeping into your bones, you untie the leather baldric from your shoulder and shove the pistol deep into your waistband. Mimicking Silas, you cinch your sash tighter, securing your cutlass so it doesn't swing freely. The relief is immediate. You feel lighter, more agile. You have shed a layer of your costume in favor of staying alive. The storm rages on for hours, but you move with a new, grim efficiency. You are no longer playing a role. You are a sailor, fighting a storm, and you realize that true competence isn't about looking the part. It's about surviving long enough to play it another day. The sea doesn't care about your reputation. It only cares about your mistakes. The storm eventually breaks, leaving behind a bruised, exhausted ship and a crew to match. The sun returns, feeling weakened, apologetic. The sea settles into a gentle, rhythmic swell. In the aftermath, you survey the damage. The ship is battered but intact. The crew is weary, but there's a strange sense of camaraderie in the shared survival. You all faced the fury of the ocean and won. For now, Finn, the man who broke his leg, is now a permanent fixture below deck. His leg crudely set and splintered. HES a constant, groaning reminder of how quickly your own bravado can turn on you. His days as an active pirate are over. The ship's articles promise him a share of the loot and a handsome payout for his injury. But his value to the crew has plummeted. His swagger is gone, replaced by a pallor of pain and uselessness. In the days that follow, As life returns to its normal, monotonous rhythm of watch and wait, you become keenly aware of another currency on this ship's cars. You'd noticed them before, of course, but now you see them with new eyes. They aren't just marks of past violence, they are credentials. They are the pirate's equivalent of a nobleman's idol or a merchant's letter of credit. You watch One-Eyed Jack. His missing eye is his most obvious feature, but it's the web of silvery scars around the empty socket that tells the real story. The puckered flesh speaks of a wound that was not clean or quick. He never talks about how it happened, which only adds to his mystique. When he stares at you with his one good eye, it feels like HES, seeing straight through your carefully constructed facade. His scar isn't a disfigurement, it's a source of authority. When he gives an order, men listen. Then there's the quartermaster, Israel, the man who seems to wear his weight in pistols. You get a closer look at him one day as HES mending a sail, his shirt off, in the humid Caribbean heat. His back and arms are a tapestry of old wounds. There are the long, thin lines of knife cuts, the ragged, starburst pattern of a musket ball that was dug out, and the faint, lattice-like marks of a flogging from a previous life, likely in the Navy. Each mark is a chapter in his story, and together they form an epic of survival. He is a living document of violence, and his presence commands a nervous respect. No one questions his toughness. His skin has already answered any questions you might have. You realize that a scar is a shortcut. It bypasses the need for posturing. A man with a fearsome scar doesn't need to boast. The scar boasts for him. It says, I have been in a fight to the death and I am still standing here. The other guy isn't. This visual proof of experience is a powerful to love intimidation, not just against your enemies, but within the fiercely competitive hierarchy of the pirate crew itself. A truly strange and brutal aspect of this is the idea of beautifying a wound. It's a niche and gruesome practice, but you hear whispers of it. Some pirates, if they received a cut on the face, would intentionally rub gunpowder or dirt into it as it healed. The goal was to make the resulting scar darker, more pronounced, and more terrifying. A clean, thin scar could be overlooked. A thick, black, jagged line on your face was a statement. This is a topic historians find fascinating and grim, trying to separate myth from the grisly reality. Was this a common practice, or the act of a few particularly theatrical pirates on this ship? The legend is enough to make you shudder. The idea of intentionally making a wound worse for the sake of appearances is a level of commitment to the brand that you can't yet fathom. You look at your own smooth, unmarked skin with a new kind of frustration. The storm was a trial by nature, and you survived it, but you didn't emerge with any visible proof. Your hands are raw and blistered from the ropes, but those will heal. You have a new ache in your back and a healthy fear of the weather, but those are invisible. You lack the one thing that would instantly elevate your status from greenhorn to survivor. You start to understand the logic. In a world where your life could depend on how quickly an enemy captain decides to surrender, looking fearsome is a survival tactic. A ship full of men who look like they've been chewed up and spat out by hell itself is far more likely to see a prize ship's flag come down without a single shot fired. A bloodless victory is the most profitable kind. No one gets hurt, the ship isn't damaged, and the cargo is intact. Scars, therefore, are good for business. You feel a perverse sense of jealousy. You almost wish the storm had given you some small, permanent mark. A broken finger, a split lip, anything to show you'd been tested. It's a dangerous and foolish thought, and you know it. But the logic of this brutal world is seeping into you. You are starting to value the very things you once feared. You are beginning to see beauty in the grotesque and status in the damaged. And that quiet shift in your own mind is perhaps the most dangerous change of all. You get your wish, but like all wishes granted by a cruel trickster, it comes in a form you never would have asked for, stripped of all glory and romance. It happens during a routine, almost boring task. The ship has captured a small merchant sloop. A prize barely worth the effort. There was no fight. The terrified merchant captains surrendered the moment your black flag was raised. Now, the crew is transferring cargo. Sacks of flour, barrels of salted fish, crates of cheap wine. It's heavy, sweaty work under the punishing afternoon sun. You're part of a team hoisting a particularly heavy barrel of wine from the sloop's hold onto your deck. The makeshift crane, a simple block and tackle rig, groans under the strain. You and 3 other men are hauling on the main rope, your feet braced against the deck. It's a rhythmic, grunt-filled effort. Heave, pause, heave, pause. This is the unglamorous reality of piracy. It's not all swashbuckling and treasure chests. Most of it is manual labor. Its drudgery punctuated by moments of terror. The barrel is almost clear of the sloop's railing when the rope sets. It's not a catastrophic failure. The rope doesn't snap. The barrel doesn't plummet back into the hold. Instead, the main hauling rope, slick with sweat and sea spray, just slides through the hands of the man in front of you. The sudden transfer of weight is immense. The rope is ripped from your grasp, but not before it scours the flesh from your palms and sends you stumbling backward. You land hard on your side, but that's not what you're focused on. They's secondary guide rope, meant to keep the barrel from swinging, whips violently through the air. You don't even see it coming. You just feel a searing, white-hot line of pain across your cheek. You cry out, a sharp, involuntary yelp. Your hand flies to your face, and when you pull it away, your fingers are slick with red. The chaos is brief. The other men regain control of the barrel. Silas barks an order, and the barrel is safely swung aboard and lowered to the deck with a heavy thud. The incident is over in less than 10 seconds. Your moment of truth has arrived, and it was utterly, pathetically mundane. You weren't dueling a Spanish captain. You weren't charging into a hail of musket fire. A rope hit you in the face because someone's hands were sweaty. Silas stomps over to you, his expression unreadable. He inspects the gash on your cheek. It's not deep, but it's long, running from just below your eye down to the corner of your jaw. It's bleeding freely, the warm, sticky river tracking down your neck. Get up, he grunts. He doesn't offer a hand. It's just a scratch. Go see the cook. The ship's cook oft undoubled as its surgeon. This was a grimly practical arrangement. The cook knew how to handle knives and saws, and he worked in the galley, where he had a fire to heat his tools and boil water. Your surgeon is a greasy man named Jem, whose primary qualification for medicine seems to be a strong stomach and a lack of sympathy. He sits you down on a stool in the cramped, sweltering galley. He inspects the wound with the same detached air he might use to inspect a piece of pork. Lucky, he mumbles, more to himself than to you. An inch higher, you'd be One-Eyed Jack's cousin. He doesn't offer you rum for the pain. That was a luxury for serious amputations. For a simple cut like this, you're expected to endure it. He cleans the wound with a rag soaked in salt water, the sting of it making you hiss and clench your fists. Then he produces a needle and a coarse thread. There's a persistent, almost mythical belief that pirates use sail needles and thread for stitches. But that's a bit of a romantic exaggeration. Most ships with any sense had a basic surgical kit, though the needles were indeed thick and the thread was far from sterile. He does a clumsy, painful job of sewing you up. Each puncture of the needle is a fresh jolt of agony. He pulls the stitches tight, the skin protesting. When he has done, he slaps a foul-smelling poultice of torn d'herbes over the handiwork. Don't touch it, he orders, and then turns back to peeling potatoes. Your medical treatment is complete. For the next week, your face throbs with a dull, persistent ache. The wound itches terribly as it begins to heal, and you have to fight the urge to scratch at the crude stitches. Every time you catch your reflection, you see the angry, reddened black line bisect your cheek. It's ugly. It's a mark of incompetence, of a stupid accident. But a strange thing happens. The way the other crewmen look at you changes again. The last vestiges of condescension are gone. They don't ask what happened. The how doesn't matter. All that matters is the what. You have a scar now. A fresh one. A real one. One evening, Israel, the quartermaster, claps you on the shoulder as you pass. Looks like you've finally been christened. Boy, he says, a rare glimmer of something like approval in his eyes. You've been accepted. You've paid the entry fee. The irony is crushing. Your greatest moment of humiliation has become your badge of honor. You didn't turn it through bravery or skill. You earned it through bad luck and shoddy rope handling. Historians often debate the heroic nature of pirate violence, but your experience suggests much of it was probably just as accidental and undignified as your own. A slip on a wet deck, a misfire from a poorly maintained pistol, a drunken brawl over a card game. The origins of these credentials were likely far from epic. You touch your cheek, feeling the rough, raised line of the stitches beneath the bandage. This mark will be with you for the rest of your life. It's the first permanent entry in the violent ledger of your new identity. And as much as you hate how you got it, a small, dark part of you is grateful that it's there. You are no longer the boy with the smooth face. You are now a man with a scar. You are, finally, starting to look the part. Now that you've been christened with your first scar, you become privy to the more intimate, and frankly, more disgusting, secrets of pirate grooming. You thought the lack of bathing was the worst of it. You were wrong. The real test of your commitment to the pirate aesthetic is a substance that is both ubiquitous and repulsive tar. You smell it before you truly understand it. It's a sharp, acrid, smoky scent that seems to cling to the older sailors. A foul perfume that's open salt water can't wash away. It's the smell of the ship itself, the caulking between the hull's planks, the waterproofing on the rigging. But it's also on the men, in their hair, in their beards. Your introduction to its cosmetic purpose comes one sweltering afternoon. You see Silas sitting on a crate, a small iron pot simmering over a tiny, contained fire on the deck. HES melting something dark and viscous inside it. Another sailor, a young man with a wispy, new gross beard, is sitting on the deck in front of him, looking distinctly nervous. You watch, fascinated and horrified, as Silas dips a wooden stick into the pot of hot tar. He works it through the younger sailor's hair, coating it in the black, sticky goo. He then moves to the man's beard, methodically twisting, unshaping the hairs into stiff, pointy tendrils that defy gravity. The young man winces as the hot tar touches his skin, his eyes squeezed shut. When Silas is done, the man's hair is a matted, waterproof helmet, and his beard is a weaponized sculpture. He looks ridiculous, but also, undeniably, more intimidating. This was a very real, if extreme, practice. While not every pirate did it, using tar on the hair and beard was a known phenomenon. It had a practical, albeit disgusting, purpose. Life on a wooden ship was a constant battle against pests. Lice, fleas, and other vermin were rampant in the close and jiggif in the quarters. A thick coating of tar was ineffective. If brutal, pest repellent, it essentially turned your scalp into a toxic, impassable wasteland for any bug foolish enough to try and make a home there. But the practical reason was secondary to the aesthetic one. It was, once again, about intimidation. Tarred hair was stiff, black, and unnatural. A tarred beard could be styled into fearsome shapes. Points. Braids were just a solid, terrifying mess. It made you look wild, unhinged. It was the ultimate rejection of civilized grooming. No sane person would willingly coat their head in hot, sticky tar. Therefore, a man who did so was clearly not sane, and thus very dangerous. You learn that there were different recipes. Some men mixed the tar with sulfur brimstone or grease to change its consistency or enhance its pest-killing properties. This concoction was not only a cosmetic, but also a constant, irritating presence. It was heavy, it was itchy, and in the hot Caribbean sun, it could melt slightly, dripping down your forehead and neck in greasy, black rivulets. The hygiene implications were, of course, horrific. This wasn't a modern hair gel you could wash out in the evening. Removing it was a painful ordeal that involved scraping, soaking with oil or alcohol, and often yanking out clumps of hair. Most men who adopted the style simply left it in, reapplying new layers as needed. This could lead to a host of skin problems, rashes, infections, and clogged pores, creating a painful condition that we now recognize as severe folliculitis. Historians who study the daily life of sailors often wonder how they balance the perceived benefits with such obvious, painful downsides. The answer, it seems, lies in the immense social pressure to conform to the image of a terrifying sea reaver. You see the aftermath on the young sailor. He walks around with a stiff neck, unable to turn his head too quickly, constantly, subtly scratching at the edges of his hairline. But he also walks with a new confidence. He has leveled up in the pirate hierarchy. He has endured the ritual. You look at your own hair, still relatively clean and soft. You look at your growing beard, which is just a scruffy, unremarkable mess, and you feel the pressure. It's an unspoken expectation. Your scar has bought you entry, but to truly belong, to show you are committed, you need to embrace the filth. You need to adopt the stench of the brotherhood. A few days later, you see Silas with his simmering pot again. He catches your eye and gives a slight nod towards the empty crate in front of him. It's an invitation. Your stomach churns. This isn't a fleeting decision like changing your clothes or strapping on a sword. This is a commitment to discomfort, a commitment to smelling like a freshly paved road. You think about the itching, the potential for painful rashes, the sheer, sticky misery of it. But then you think about the look in Israel's eyes when he saw your scar. You think about the nod of approval, the feeling of finally being seen as one of them. The desire to belong is a powerful, insidious force. It makes you willing to do things that your old self, the boy on the naval ship, would have found insane. With a deep breath that fills your lungs with the smell of salt and smoke, you walk over and sit down on the crate. You close your eyes and wait for the heat. The heat comes first to your senses, a waft of acrid smoke from the pot that makes your eyes water. You sit stiffly on the crate, your hands clenched into fists on your knees, feeling a profound sense of dread. This feels like a ritualistic branding, a willing submission to a painful ordeal for the sake of the tribe. Silas doesn't say a word. He works with a practiced, dispassionate air. You feel the first daub of the hot tar on your scalp, applied with the flat of his wooden stick. It's not searingly hot. Let it cool just enough to be bearable, but it's a deeply unpleasant, viscous warmth that spreads slowly, pulling at the roots of your hair. You flinch, but force yourself to stay still. Any sign of weakness now wouldn't do all the progress you've made. He works his way across your head, methodically coating every inch of your hair. The weight is immediate, a heavy, oppressive skullcap of goo. It feels like you're wearing a helmet made of warm candle wax and gravel. He uses the stick to press and mat your hair down against your scalp, creating a solid, impenetrable layer. The smell is overwhelming, an intimate, suffocating cloud of smoke and chemicals that seems to crawl down your throat. Then he moves to your beard. This is worse. The skin on your face is more sensitive, and the application of the tar feels more personal, more violating. He takes smaller amounts on the stick, carefully working it through the scruff on your chin and cheeks. You can feel the heat on your skin, a constant, low-grade burn. He twists the hairs at your chin into a crude, stiff point, a miniature black spear. The entire process takes maybe 10 minutes, but it feels like an eternity. When HES finished, he steps back and surveys his work with a grunt. He doesn't offer praise or encouragement. The act itself is the only thing that matters. You've done it. You've passed the test. You slowly stand up, your head feeling unnaturally heavy. You resist the urge to touch it, knowing your fingers would just get stuck in the mess. You walk to the side of the ship and look down at the water, but your reflection is just a distorted, wavering shape. You can't see what you look like, but you can feel it. You feel sealed, encased. The physical sensations are immediate and varied. There's the weight, of course, but there's also the pulling. The tar has glued strands of your hair together in unnatural ways, and every slight movement of your scalp is a tiny, sharp tug. As the tar cools and hardens completely, it becomes rigid. Turning your head is a deliberate, full torso affair. That evening, you try to sleep in your hammock. It's impossible. You can trust your head against the canvas without it sticking. You end up having to roll up a spare shirt to prop under your neck, leaving your tarred head suspended in the air. The discomfort is immense, a constant, nagging presence that denies you the simple relief of rest. There's a strange historical footnote to all this. While tar was the most extreme option, many sailors in general, not just pirates, used various forms of grease and wax on their hair. In the age of sail, long hair was common, but it was a liability. It could get caught in rigging or blow into your eyes at a critical moment. So, sailors would often braid it into a single pigtail, or two, and coat it with whatever grease was available, often just animal fat. This kept it contained and somewhat waterproof. The pirates' use of tar was taking this practical tradition to its most theatrical and intimidating extreme. The next day, you walk the deck with your new, hardened coiffure. You feel self-conscious, but the reactions are exactly what you'd hoped for. Men who used to ignore you now give you a gruff nod. You are now part of an exclusive club, the men willing to endure this specific brand of misery for the sake of the collective image. Your scar was an accident that earned you respect. The tar is a choice that solidifies it. The decision is a turning point. You willingly inflicted this upon yourself. You have sacrificed comfort, cleanliness, and a good night's sleep for the sake of appearance. Historians can debate whether this was about hygiene or intimidation. But as you stand there, feeling the sun heat the tar on your head until it often unthreatens to drip, you know the truth. It's about belonging. It's about transforming yourself, layer by painful layer, from the person you were into the person this world demands you to be. The boy who ran away from the Navy is well and truly gone now, buried under a shell of hardened tar and a lengthening scar. You are a pirate, not just in dress and weapon, but in stench and discomfort. And the most disturbing part is the flicker of pride you feel, a perverse satisfaction in your own degradation. The pride is short-lived. It quickly coalesces into a persistent, maddening itch. The initial discomfort of the tar was one thing, a static, heavy feeling you could almost get used to. But the itch is a living, crawling thing. It starts at your hairline, a faint tickle you try to ignore. But it grows, spreading across your scalp, a relentless, insidious torment that burrows deep into your consciousness. You can't scratch it, at least, not properly. Clawing at your head does nothing but get your fingernails caked with black, sticky residue. The relief is fleeting, replaced by a renewed, more furious itching. It's a vicious cycle. The tar traps wet dirt against your skin, creating the perfect breeding ground for irritation. Your scalp can't breathe. You try to be stoic, to ignore it as the other men seem to, but you see the telltale signs in them, too. The subtle twitch of a muscle near the temple, the way a man will casually use the butt of his knife to press firmly against a spot on his head, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. This isn't a torment unique to you. It's a shared misery. Another unspoken bond of the brotherhood. Sleep offers no escape. The itch seems to intensify in the quiet of the night, when there are no tasks to distract you. You lie in your hammock, your neck aching from its awkward position, your mind consumed by the fiery prickling on your scalp and along your jawline where your beard is now a stiff, tarry cage. You dream of clean water, of soap, of the simple, forgotten pleasure of running your fingers through your own hair. After a week of this, You feel like you're losing your mind. The constant, low-grade suffering is wearing you down, making you irritable and short-tempered. You finally break down and ask Silas if there's anything to be done. He looks at you, his own art hair looking as ancient and permanent as the lines on his face, and lets out a dry, humorless chuckle. It's the price, boy. The tax on looking fearsome. He rummages in his sea chest and produces a small bottle filled with a cloudy liquid. A bit o' grog or oil can soften it. Might help with the itch. Might make it a sticky mess. Your gamble. You take the bottle and retreat to a quiet corner of the ship. You pour a small amount of the cheap, harsh rum onto your head. The alcohol stings in the places where you've scratched the skin raw, but it also provides a momentary, blessed coolness. The tar softens slightly, becoming pliable again. You work the liquid in, and for a few minutes, the itching subsides into a dull throb. It's not a solution, but it's a reprieve. This brings up a fascinating and rather disgusting bit of historical hygiene. In an age before modern dermatology, people used all sorts of strange concoctions to deal with skin ailments. For sailors, this was even more pronounced. They would use things like vinegar to treat sores, you're undue to its ammonia content as an antiseptic, and fish oil to soothe chapped skin. The idea of using rum or oil to manage it or induce rash fits perfectly within this framework of desperate, makeshift medicine. They were fighting a host of skin problems from sunburn and salt sores to the effects of their own cosmetics with whatever they had on hand. The attempt to wash the tar out is a fool's errand, as you soon discover. One afternoon, during a calm sea, you decide you can't take it anymore. Using a bucket of salt water, you try to scrub your head. It's a complete failure. The cold salt water does little to soften the hardened tar. You just end up with a headache, a sore neck, and salty, sticky hair. It makes it worse. The inability to ever be truly clean has a psychological effect. It makes you feel grimy, not just on the surface, but to your core. You are perpetually dirty. It creates a sense of separation from the clean world, the world of merchants and townsfolk. It reinforces your identity as an outsider, the pariah. And perhaps that's part of the point. Historians still debate the psychological impact of such long-term, deliberate and geographic practices. Did it contribute to the pirates' legendary ferocity and disregard for social norms? Did living in a constant state of filth and discomfort make violence and brutality easier to embrace? It's impossible to know for sure, but as you sit there, smelling the rum and tar on your own head, you feel a definite hardening inside you. A layer of grime is coating your soul. You give up on the idea of ever being clean again. You accept the itch as a part of your life, like the scar on your cheek or the weight of the cutlass at your side. It's just another piece of the uniform, another part of the cost of admission. You learn the trick of pressing a knife handle to your scalp. You learn to live with the maddening sensation, pushing it to the back of your mind. You have traded comfort for acceptance, cleanliness for a place in the hierarchy, and you know, with a grim certainty, that this is a bargain you can never undo. The tar will be with you until your hair is shaved off or falls out. It's a permanent mark of your new life, a constant, itching reminder of the choice you made. The assault on your body isn't limited to the outside. A slow, insidious decay is happening from within, and it manifests in the most social of expressions: a smile, or, more accurately, the lack thereof. You begin to notice that the men on this ship rarely show their teeth when they laugh. A hearty laugh is an open-mouthed, booming affair, but a grin is a tight-lipped, guarded thing. Your first clue is the food. It's a monotonous, soul-crushing diet. The initial excitement of not eating the Navy-S rock-hard biscuits has faded, replaced by the grim reality of a pirate's larder. When you're at sea for long stretches, the menu consists of two main categories: salted and dried. Salted beef, salted pork, dried beans, and ship's biscuit, which you now know is just as hard and unappetizing no matter whose flag is flying overhead. Fresh food is a rare, fleeting luxury. When the ship makes landfall or captures a prize with fresh provisions, there's a brief joy, a period of feasting on fruits, vegetables, then fresh meat, but that bounty spoils quickly in the tropical heat. Within a week, you're back to the salted, preserved dreariness. The problem, though you don't have the words or scientific knowledge to articulate it, is a catastrophic lack of vitamin C, and the result of that deficiency is a disease that haunted sailors for centuries: scurvy. You see its early signs all around you. Men complain of a deep weariness, a bone-deep lethargy that has nothing to do with their workload, their joints ache, their old scars, even ones that have been healed for years, sometimes begin to ache or discolor, as if the body is forgetting how to hold itself together. Then comes the mouth. One day, you're talking to a sailor named Thomas, the man who, despite the grime, has always seemed to have a cheerful disposition. He smiles at a joke you make, and for the first time, he does it with an open mouth. The sight is shocking. His gums are a dark, purplish color, swollen and spongy looking, seemingly swallowing what's left of his teeth. You can see that several of his front teeth are loose, angled unnaturally in their sockets. He sees your expression, and his smile vanishes instantly. He becomes guarded and sullen for the rest of the day. You realize this is the secret everyone is hiding. The pirate's fearsome snarl, so often depicted in stories, was likely less about aggression and more about the painful, ugly reality of advanced dental decay. Bad breath on the ship isn't just from lack of hygiene, it's the smell of active disease, of rotting gums and decaying teeth. The one-toothed smile of a pirate wasn't just a caricature, it was a statistical likelihood. Between scurvy, poor nutrition, a lack of any dental care, and the occasional tooth lost to a fistfight or an accident, a full set of healthy teeth was rarer than a royal pardon. The iconic image of a pirate with a few blackened stumps was grimly accurate. A weirdly specific and sad little fact about scurvy is that it could cause psychological symptoms as well. Victims often reported feelings of depression, melancholy, and irrational anger. So, the famously volatile and gloomy pirate temperament might not have been entirely due to a life of crime, and it could have been chemically induced by their diet. It's a classic chicken and egg question for historians. Did the pirate life attract broken men, or did the pirate life break them, body and mind? You become subconsciously protective of your own mouth. You find yourself chewing your food carefully, trying not to put too much pressure on your teeth. You inspect your own gums in the tarnished silver mirror when no one is looking, terrified of seeing that telltale swelling, that dark purple hue. The problem is compounded by another pirate staple's sugar. When a prize ship is taken, one of the most valuable commodities is sugar, either in refined cones or as molasses, a key ingredient for rum. Pirates consumed it in vast quantities. The famous drink grog was often sweetened with sugar or molasses to make the watered-down rum more palatable. This constant exposure to sugar, combined with the total of lack of cleaning, created the perfect storm for rapid tooth decay, even without the ravages of scurvy. So, the pirate's smile is a painful paradox. A man's face could be a terrifying mask of scars and tar, a carefully cultivated image of strength and brutality. But behind his lips, his body was literally falling apart. The very foundation of his fearsome snarl was crumbling. This internal weakness, this vulnerability, was a secret shame, a stark contrast to the aggressive exterior they worked so hard to maintain. It was a weakness that no amount of weaponry or posturing could hide up close. You start to see the men in a different light. They aren't just fearsome outlaws. They are walking catalogs of pain. Their skin is marked by violence. Their scalps are tormented by filth, and their mouths are battlegrounds of disease. Every aspect of their physical existence is a compromise, a trade-off, and you are one of them now. You look at your scar, feel the itch on your tarred scalp, and run your tongue over your own teeth, praying they feel solid. You are a part of this slow, collective decay. The legends travel on whispers, carried from ship to ship, port to port, growing more monstrous with every telling. In a world where reputation is everything, one man has crafted a reputation so terrifying, so potent, that his name alone is a weapon. You hear it for the first time in a smoky tavern in Nassau, the rowdy, unofficial capital of the Pirate Republic. The name is Teach. Edward Teach, but no one calls him that. They call him Blackbird. The stories are fantastical, bordering on the supernatural. They say Teach is the giant of a man, with a wild, untamed black beard that covers his entire face, a great, bristling mane that seems to have a life of its own. They say that in battle, he is a demon unleashed, fighting with 2 cutlasses, his belt and bandoliers bristling with half a dozen pistols. They say he has married 14 wives, though no one can name more than 1. You sit in a dark corner of the tavern, nursing a cup of rum, listening to a grizzled old sailor spin yarns for a table of wide-eyed new recruits. The old sailor claims to have served on a sloop that sailed alongside Blackbeard's ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. Teach, the sailor says, his voice low and conspiratorial. He ain't just a captain. He is a performer. He knows that fear is a finer weapon than any sword. He tells a story about how Blackbird captured a prize without firing a shot. He simply sailed alongside the merchant vessel, stood on the railing in full view, and stared. The sheer spectacle of him, the size, the beard, the arsenal strapped to his body was enough. The merchant captain, so the story goes, struck his colors immediately, convinced he was facing not a man, but the devil himself. This is the core of Blackbeard's genius. Then you realize it's the ultimate extension of everything you've been learning. He has taken the unspoken rules of pirate presentation, the intimidating clothes, the visible weaponry, the fearsome grooming, and elevated them into a form of high art. He is not just a pirate, he is the platonic ideal of a pirate. He is a walking, breathing personification of terror. His most famous feature, the one that gave him his name, is his beard. The stories say he let it grow to an absurd length, then plaited it into small braids, tying them with brightly colored ribbons. It sounds almost festive, until you hear the next part of the legend. This is where the story of his calculated damage becomes truly chilling. The old sailor leans in closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The ribbons are just for show. The real trick is the smoke. This is the part of the Blackbird legend that has become immortal, the practice of lighting fuses in his beard. It's a detail so specific and strange that it has the ring of truth. The idea is that before a battle, he would take small, slow-burning fuses, the same kind used to light cannons, cut them to length, and tuck them under his hat or weave them into his magnificent beard. He would then light them. The effect would have been utterly terrifying. Imagine it, this giant of a man, his face obscured by a wild black beard, boards your ship, and his head is wreathed in smoke. Not just a puff here and there, but a constant, rolling cloud of thick, acrid smoke, punctuated by the sputtering, fiery glow of the burning fuses. It would have made him look like he had literally emerged from the depths of hell, a demonic specter surrounded by fire and brimstone. Historians still debate the practical reality of this. Could he really have done this without setting his entire beard on fire? Was it a regular occurrence or a one-time stunt that grew into a legend? Some suggest he used small sticks of smoldering cord, rather than actual cannon fuses, to create the smoke with less risk of self-immolation. But regardless of the specifics, the idea of it was his masterpiece. It was pure psychological warfare. It wasn't about hurting anyone with the fuses, it was about convincing them that he was a man so insane, so utterly without fear of pain or death, that he would willingly set his own face on fire just to scare you. And who would dare fight a man like that? You listen to these stories, and a new level of understanding dawns on you. You've been working on your own image, piecing it together with a scar, some tar, a sword. It's been a painful, irritating process. But Blackbird has built an entire identity. He has curated his own myth. He understands that in the theater of piracy, the most powerful role to play is the monster. You leave the tavern that night with the name Blackbird echoing in your mind. He represents the pinnacle of what you are all trying to achieve. He is a man who has become a story. His reputation precedes him, does his work for him, and will surely outlive him. He has mastered the brutal art of appearance so completely that he has transcended being a mere man. And as you walk through the chaotic, torchlit streets of Nassau, you feel a strange mix of fear and professional admiration. You are just a player, learning your lines. Blackbird is the one writing the play. The legend of Blackbird is so potent that it starts to infect your own ship's culture. You see men trying, in their own small, clumsy ways, to emulate his theatricality. A sailor might tuck an extra, unnecessary pistol into his belt. Another might let his beard grow wilder, more unkempt, a pale imitation of the great man's own. They are all, in essence, amateur actors trying to copy the star performer. But you soon learn that Blackbeard's terror theater was just for his enemies. It was for his own crew as well. One night, at a long, uneventful watch under a star-dusted sky. Why, this tells you another story about Teach. It's a story you won't hear in the taverns because it's not about glorious, bloodless victories. It's about calculated, internal cruelty. Teach knew a crew gets lazy. Silas says, his voice a low rumble. A happy crew is a crew that they ain't scared. And a crew that ain't scared is a crew that might get ideas. Might start thinking they're as tough as the captain. According to Silas's telling, one day, on his ship the Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbird was drinking in his cabin with a few of his most trusted men, including his first mate. Is real hands a real historical figure, not to be confused with your ship's quartermaster. The mood was relaxed, celebratory even, after a successful prize. Suddenly, without any warning, Blackbird drew two pistols from under the table. He cocked them, blew out the candle, plunging the cabin into darkness, and fired them randomly across the table where his men were sitting. The cabin erupted in chaos. When the lights were lit, his real hands was screaming. One of the pistol balls had gone straight through his knee, crippling him for life. When his other men, stunned and terrified, demanded to know why he'd done it, Blackbeard's supposed reply was chilling. He allegedly said, "If I did not now and then kill one of you, you would forget who I was." This story, whether completely true or embellished over time, reveals the dark side of his image crafting, the fuses in his beard, the bristling arsenal that was for the outside world. This was for his own men. It was a terrifying, unpredictable act of violence designed to keep his own crew permanently off balance, to remind them that he was not their friend or their equal. He was their commander, and his authority was absolute and could be expressed with random, life-altering violence. He was cultivating fear in every direction. Then Silas tells you about another, even stranger, incident, the Hellfire test. The story goes that Blackbird, wanting to create a hell of our own to see who was toughest, took several of his crewmen into the ship's hold. He ordered them to seal the hatches. Then he proceeded to light several large pots of sulfur, also known as brimstone. The hold filled with thick, choking, poisonous fumes. It became a contest of who could endure the suffocating torment the longest. In the end, Blackbird himself was the last one to cry out for the hatches to be opened, emerging on deck, coughing and gasping but triumphant, having won his own insane game. These stories paint a picture of a man who was not just a performer, but a deeply manipulative and possibly psychopathic leader. He used these acts of bizarre cruelty as a management technique. He understood that a crew of pirates is a volatile, dangerous entity. To control them, a captain needed to be more volatile and more dangerous than any of them. He couldn't just be the strongest or the smartest. He had to be the craziest. The academic world is still fascinated by Blackbird's leadership style. Was he a brilliant psychologist who understood the power of branding and fear, or was he genuinely unhinged? A man whose violent impulses happened to align perfectly with the needs of a pirate captain. This debate, the mad genius versus the genuine madman, is at the heart of the Blackbird mystique. Thinking about these stories, you look at your own captain. He is a hard man, a competent sailor, and a decent fighter. He commands respect through his skill. But he is not Blackbird. No one is. You realize the immense pressure that must have been on pirate captains. They were elected, and they could be deposed just as easily. If a crew lost faith in their captain's ability to lead them to profit and protect them, they could simply vote him out or, in more brutal cases, maroon him or kill him. So, a captain had to constantly perform his own competence, his own authority. For most, this meant being a good navigator and a brave fighter. For Blackbird, it meant creating a spectacle of terror so profound that no one would even dream of questioning him. His brutal beauty standard wasn't just about his face, it was about his actions. He made his very behavior a part of his fearsome aesthetic. It's a sobering thought. You are part of a floating democracy. Yes, but it is a democracy that can only be led by a tyrant. A tyrant the crew chooses for themselves. And the qualifications for that job are a level of ruthlessness and a commitment to a terrifying image that go far beyond a simple scar or a tarred beard. It's a performance that could get you, or the people around you, killed. The smoke in Blackbeard's beard wasn't just for show, it was a warning sign, and not just for his enemies. Life on the ship settles into a predictable, if grimy, routine. The days are marked by the sun, the nights by the stars, and the whole affair is punctuated by the endless creaking of the ship and the ever-present itch on your scalp. You've grown into your role. Your scar has faded from an angry red to a silvery white, a permanent fixture on your face. The tar in your hair is a familiar weight. You handle the ropes with calloused hands and carry your cutlass with a practiced ease. You belong. But you start to notice things, small, quiet inconsistencies. It's about a crewman named James. James is slight of build, quieter than most, and remarkably efficient at his duties. He keeps to himself, rarely joining in the boisterous drinking or gambling sessions. His face is smooth, almost boyish, and he hasn't adopted the torn beard aesthetic. He explains this away by claiming a sensitive disposition of the skin, an excuse most of the crew grudgingly accepts because he is so undeniably competent. Daichi as the skilled navigator, able to read the stars with an acuity that few possess, and Aichi as nimble in the rigging. His value to the crew is unquestionable. But you see odd things. You see the way James carefully rations his water, sipping where other men gulp. You notice that in the chaotic, cramped sleeping quarters, his hammock is always strung in the most secluded, defensible corner. He avoids the brutal, bone-jarring work of hauling cannons, opting instead for the more detailed tasks of mending sails or splicing rope. His fingers quick and sure. One afternoon, you stumble below deck unexpectedly to grab a coil of rope. You find James standing by his sea chest, his back to you. For a moment, his shirt is off. You see a flash of pale skin, and what looks like a thick linen bandage wrapped tightly around his chest. He hears your footsteps, and in an instant, he whirls around, pulling his shirt back on with a speed that is almost supernatural. His eyes, usually calm and placid, are wide with a primal, cornered animal fear. He doesn't say anything. You don't say anything. You grab your rope and leave, your heart pounding. But an idea has taken root in your mind, an idea that is both absurd. The more you think about it, terrifyingly plausible. The ship's articles, the code nailed to the mast, are very clear on this point. Article VI, no boy or woman to be allowed amongst them. If any man were found seducing any of the latter sex, and carried her to sea, disguised, he was to suffer death. Death, Not marooning, not flogging, death. The rule was absolute. A woman on board was considered the worst possible luck, a distraction that would inevitably lead to jealousy, fighting, and the breakdown of the fragile social order. A crew of violent, isolated men could not handle the presence of a woman. The rule was born of a crime, practical misogyny. You start to hear whispers. You're not the only one who has noticed James's peculiarities. In hushed conversations, away from the ears of the captain or quartermaster, men speculate. The whispers are a mix of crude jokes, genuine suspicion, and a strange, almost protective curiosity. Have you ever seen James use the head one might ask? Moves like a cat, not a damned ape like the rest of us. Another might mutter. The rumors are dangerous. If they reach the captain, he would be forced to act, to uphold the code. An accusation would mean an inspection. An inspection would mean discovery. And discovery would mean death for James, and likely for anyone who was found to have known and kept his secret. This plunges you into a state of quiet anxiety. You find yourself watching James, not with suspicion, but with a growing sense of dread. You see the constant, low-level terror that he or perhaps she must be living with. Every moment of every day is a performance. A performance far more difficult and dangerous than your own attempts at looking fierce. You chose to put on a costume of masculinity. James, you suspect, is hiding a reality that the world has deemed unacceptable. The question of female pirates is one that has long fascinated historians, precisely because it was so rare and so perilous. The prevailing academic view is that the vast majority of pirate crews were exclusively male. The risks for a woman were simply too immense. Yet, the stories persist, not just as myth, but in historical records. There were, undeniably, women who broke through this ironclad prohibition. But how many Jameses were there? How many women passed successfully as men for their entire careers? Their secrets dying with them we can never know. It's a tantalizing and forever unanswerable question. The historical record only catches the ones who failed, or the ones who became so famous their secret could no longer be kept. You look at James now and see not an oddity, but a master of disguise. The lack of a beard, the slight build, the quiet demeanor. It's not a failure to conform to the pirate image. It's a brilliant, alternative strategy for survival. By being unassuming, quiet, and highly skilled, James has made himself essential. He has made his competence his shield, while the rest of you are posturing and preening, trying to look like the baddest man on the ship. James is simply trying to be invisible. Then you realize, with a chill, that his version of cruel beauty is the most demanding of all. It is the crushing, constant pressure of total self-erasure. The tension around James hangs in the air for weeks, an unspoken secret that everyone is aware of but no one dares to voice aloud. It's a fragile truth, held together by James's undeniable skill as a navigator and a collective. Unspoken agreement to not look too closely. But secrets on a ship this small have a short lifespan. The truth comes out, as it was always bound to, in the heated chaos of battle. Your ship ambushes a Spanish galleon, a vessel far larger and better armed than your usual prey. It's a foolish, ambitious attack, driven by the promise of treasure and the captain's overconfidence. The initial cannon volley goes well, crippling the Spaniards' mainmast. That they are not the terrified merchants you are used to. They are soldiers, and they fight back with disciplined fury. The moment the grappling hooks catch in, the two ships grind together. The world descends into a hell of noise and violence. Splinters fly like shrapnel. The air is thick with gunpowder smoke, and the deck becomes a slaughterhouse. This is not the swift, intimidating raid you prefer. This is a brutal, toe-to-toe brawl. You are in the thick of it, your cutlass a heavy, clumsy tool in your hand. Your one pistol shot fired long ago. You parry a clumsy thrust from a Spanish sailor, your heart hammering against your ribs. This is real. This is not a performance. You see James near the stern, fighting with a ferocity that is shocking. James moves with a fluid, deadly grace, wielding a short sword and a dagger, a whirlwind of motion amidst the lumbering brutes. But then, it happens. A large Spanish officer, a mountain of a man with a gleaming breastplate, corners James against the railing. He knocks the sword from James's hand with a powerful blow. For a moment, it looks like it's over. The officer raises his own heavy broadsword for a final, killing strike. But James doesn't cry out or surrender. Instead, with a snarl of defiance, James rips open his own shirt. The effect is instantaneous and stunning. The officer, poised to strike, freezes. His eyes go wide. His jaw slackens. For on James's chest is not the pale, flat skin of a boy, but the tightly bound breasts of a woman. The linen wrappings you saw that day are unmistakable. In that moment of stunned hesitation, she lunges forward, dagger in hand, and drives it deep into the gap between the officer's breastplate and his throat. He gurgles, drops his sword, and collapses to the deck. The entire exchange took only seconds, but everyone nearby has seen it. The fighting around you seems to falter for a heartbeat as dozens of pirates and Spaniards alike stare. Dumbfounded, the secret is out, revealed in the most dramatic way imaginable. Later, after the fight is won at a terrible cost, the crew gathers. There is no celebration. The mood is tense, somber. The woman, who now stands tall and defiant, her shirt still open, finally speaks. Her voice is clear, steady, and holds no trace of the quiet James you knew. She tells them her name is Mary. Just Mary. She tells them she learned to fight and sail on her father's merchant ship before it was taken by pirates years ago, and that she chose this life over the one that awaited her on land. It's in this moment that the legends you've heard, the stories of the famous female pirates, crash into your reality. You'd always thought of them as myths, as tall tales to entertain sailors. But here, standing before you, is the living proof. You think of the two most famous names in Bonnie and Mary Read. The stories of Bonnie and Read are intertwined, a famous chapter in the lore of the pirate Captain Calico Jack Rackham. And Bonnie was the Irish lover of Calico Jack, an unconventional woman who left her husband for the pirate captain and sailed with him, fighting alongside the men, and never hiding her gender from the crew. Mary Read, however, had a story much like the one that just unfolded before you. She had spent most of her life disguised as a man, even serving in the British military. Her ship was taken by Calico Jack's crew, and she joined them, still maintaining her disguise as Mark Red. The famous story of her reveal is just as dramatic as what you've just witnessed. The legend says that Bonnie took a liking to the handsome young Mark Red, and in a private moment, revealed herself to be a woman to him. To his surprise, Mark responded by revealing that he was also a woman. Mary Read. The two became close friends, their secret safe until a jealous Calico Jack confronted Mark, suspecting an affair with Anne, forcing Mary to reveal her true identity to the whole crew. Whether this story is entirely accurate is, of course, a subject of historical debate. The accounts come from a single, not always reliable source, Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates, but the core fact remains two women, through different paths, ended up on the same pirate ship, fighting and living as equals among a crew of men. Your ship's Mary now stands before your captain. According to the code, she should be put to death. The crew is silent, watching. This is a defining moment. But you just saw her save a dozen lives with her skill and kill one of the enemy's best fighters with her courage. The captain looks at Mary, then at the crew, then at the blood-stained deck. He spits on the planks. The code says no women. It says nothing about a she-devil who fights better than half of you. He turns and walks away. A ragged cheer goes up. The truce is no longer unspoken. It is now official. Mary has earned her place, not by hiding, but by revealing her truth in a crucible of violence. She has passed the ultimate test, and in doing so, has rewritten the rules of your small, floating world. Mary's revelation changes the atmosphere on the ship. The initial shock gives way to a kind of rough, grudging respect. She has proven her worth in the most undeniable way possible. But as the days turn into weeks, you start to see the hidden toll of her long disguise. Now that she no longer has to perform as James, a different kind of burden becomes visible. She still binds her chest. You notice it one day when you see her practicing with her sword on the deck. She moves with the same lethal grace, but there's a slight stiffness in her torso, a restriction of movement that wasn't there when she was fighting for her life. The tight linen wrappings, her shield of secrecy for so long, have become a prison of habitant, you suspect, of comfort. To suddenly be without them after years of constant pressure might feel unnervingly strange, like a part of her is missing. You can only imagine the physical pain of it, the constant, crushing pressure on the ribs and lungs, the chafing of the rough linen against her skin. Day after day, in the sweltering Caribbean heat, it would lead to rashes, sores, and difficulty breathing. It was a form of self-inflicted, slow-motion torture, endured for the sake of survival. This was the physical price of her brutal beauty, standard the beauty of disappearing, of being unseen for what she was. This practice of chest binding by women passing as men is a historical reality, though one that is often glossed over in romantic retellings. It was a painful, dangerous necessity. Medical knowledge of the time was non-existent on the long-term effects, but we now know it could lead to back pain, shortness of breath, and even rib fractures. For Mary to have endured this for years, while performing the hard physical labor of a sailor, speaks of a level of endurance that is almost superhuman. Beyond the physical, you start to see the psychological cost. Mary is more relaxed now. Her voice, no longer held in a forced lower register. She even laughs occasionally. A genuine, startlingly clear sound. But there's a watchfulness in her eyes that never leaves. She has spent years meticulously observing, anticipating, then deflecting. She learned to walk differently, to talk differently, to sit differently. She conditioned herself to take up less space, to be less conspicuous. These are habits that don't just vanish overnight. You see it in small things. The way she still instinctively angles her body to hide her chest, even though the secret is out. The way her eyes dart around to gauge the mood of the crew before she speaks. She is a master of reading a room because her life once depended on it. This constant vigilance must have been utterly exhausting. The ever-present fear of a slip-up, a moment of carelessness that could lead to discovery and death. What if she spoke in her natural voice in her sleep? What if she got sick and was tended to by the cook? What if she was seriously wounded and her disguise was revealed while she was unconscious? Every moment was a tightrope walk over a canyon of instant death. Historians and gender theorists who study figures like Mary Read often debate the internal experience of this life. Was it purely a pragmatic disguise, a tool for survival, or did living as a man for so long change her own sense of identity? Did Margaret become more than just a role? It's an impossible question to answer, as her own voice is lost to history, filtered through the lens of a male author. We are left only with the outline of her actions, not the landscape of her mind. You find yourself feeling a profound empathy for her. Your old transformation into a pirate was about adding layers of scar, tar, weapons. It was a process of accumulation. Hers was a process of subtraction, of erasure. She had to strip away her femininity, her identity, her very self, and bury it under a carefully constructed facade of bland masculinity. One quiet evening, you were both on watch, leaning against the railing. The sea is calm. The moon is silver coin in the black sky. In a rare moment of candor, you ask her if it was hard. She is silent for a long time, staring out at the dark water. The binding was the easy part. She finally says, her voice quiet, the hard part was remembering to forgetting how to be me, so James could be real. Some days, Some days I was afraid if I ever took the bindings off, there'd be nothing left underneath. Her words hang in the salty air, a confession of a pain far deeper than any scar or itchy scalp. You realize that her look, her successful disguise, was the most dangerous beauty standard of them all. It didn't just threaten her body with pain and her life with discovery. It threatened to annihilate her soul. And as you stand beside her in the quiet darkness, you understand that the most brutal scars are the ones that no one can see. In the wake of Mary's story, a new appreciation for the diverse paths that led people to this life settles over the crew. The rigid performance of masculinity seems a little less important now, replaced by a grudging respect for sheer competence, no matter its form. But the performance of appearance doesn't vanish, it just shifts its focus. With the immediate threat of battle behind you, the crew's attention turns to a more peacock-like display, the fashion of the successful pirate. You had always imagined pirates draped in gold and jewels, but the reality is far more shabby and, in its own way, more interesting. The most coveted items aren't coins, but clothes. After a successful raid, the plundered sea chests of wealthy merchants or ship's officers are dragged onto the deck and broken open, with a palpable sense of excitement. This is the pirate's version of a high-end boutique. Out come the contents: fine linen shirts with frilly cuffs, brocade waistcoats embroidered with silver thread, velvet coats, silk stockings, and buckled shoes. These are the garments of the world you all rejected, the symbols of the aristocracy and the merchant class, and the pirates adore them. But they don't wear them as intended. That's the key. A pirate doesn't want to look like a gentleman. He wants to look like a pirate who has conquered a gentleman. You watch as the spoils are divided. A huge, burly sailor with a tarred beard squeezes himself into a delicate, sky blue silk waistcoat. It's 2 sizes too small, the fabric straining at the seams, but he wears it with immense pride over his filthy, collarless shirt. Another man takes a pair of elegant, high-heeled shoes. Yes, heels were originally a male fashion, particularly for the upper classes, but since they are impractical for the deck of a ship, he simply cuts the heels off with his knife, turning them into crude, buckled flats. This is the essence of pirate fashion appropriation and desecration. It's a form of mockery. By taking the clothes of the powerful and wearing them in a deliberately mismatched, ragged, and disrespectful way, they are sending a message. They are saying, your wealth is ours now. Your status means nothing to us. We will take your symbols of power and turn them into our costume. You yourself find a magnificent coat of deep crimson wool, with large cuffs and silver buttons. It was clearly made for a man of considerable wealth and status. You put it on. The shoulders are a bit too wide, the sleeves a bit too long. It looks faintly ridiculous when paired with your fraying breeches and the heavy cutlass at your hip, but it feels powerful. It's a trophy. You are literally wearing your success. This leads to a rather comical cold weather fact. Pirates, especially those who ventured out of the Caribbean into cooler Atlantic waters, like Blackbird, who blockaded Charleston, or those who sailed off the coast of North America, often layered clothing for warmth. But since their wardrobe was a haphazard collection of stolen goods, this layering had no rhyme or reason. You could see a man wearing a thin silk shirt, under a wool waistcoat, under a sailor's canvas jacket, topped with a stolen velvet cloak. They looked like bizarre, walk-in closets, but it was a practical response to the cold, using the materials they had. The problem with this trophy fashion is that it was all horrifically impractical. A gentleman's coat with its wide cuffs could easily snag on rigging. Fine silk and velvet were not meant for salt water, and they stained and rotted quickly, and the fit was almost always wrong. This led to a strange silhouette man in ill-fitting, flamboyant clothing, moving with the rough gait of a sailor. Historians often debate the accuracy of the calico image, the idea of pirates dressed in flamboyant, colorful clothing. While some of the more theatrical illustrations are likely exaggerated, the core idea is rooted in truth. Accounts from the time do describe pirates wearing stolen finery. Captain Bartholomew Blackbart Roberts, one of the most successful pirates of the era, was famously killed in battle wearing a rich crimsoned amisk waistcoat and a diamond cross on a gold chain around his neck. He cultivated an image of a dandy pirate, a gentleman rogue. This love of finery created a strange contradiction. These men, who lived in filth and embraced a brutal, non-jigith cynic lifestyle, were obsessed with the most delicate and luxurious fabrics. They would endure the itch of a tarred scalp, but preen over the lace on a stolen cuff. It wasn't about cleanliness or comfort. It was about status. On a ship where traditional currency had little day-to-day value, your status was displayed on your body through your scars, your weapons, and now through the quality of the clothes you had plundered. You swagger around in your new red coat for a day, feeling like a captain, but then you have to help rate a section of rigging. You take the coat off, of course, but not before a straight drop of black ghoul ends on the sleeve, a permanent stain on the crimson wool. You are momentarily furious, then you realize the absurdity of it. You are a man who willingly put star in his own hair, yet you are angry about it staining your coat. You look at the stain, and then you smile. It's perfect. It is the ultimate expression of the pirate aesthetic, a beautiful thing, stolen and then spoiled by the grime of your new reality. Now it's truly a pirate's code. The focus on outward appearance is the clothes, the scars. The tar often masks a deeper, more private suffering. You become acutely aware of this one evening while watching Silas, the old, grizzled sailor who has become your reluctant mentor. HES sitting on a crate, rubbing his left thigh, a grimace of pain tightening the web of wrinkles around his eyes. Silas doesn't have a left foot. In its place is the iconic pirate accessory, the wooden leg. You'd seen it, of course, from your first day on the ship. The peg leg is as much a part of the pirate caricature as the eye patch or the parrot. It's a symbol of a hard-fought life, another credential of survival. But, until now, you hadn't truly considered the reality behind it. The wooden leg is not a badge of honor. It's the consequence of a catastrophic failure. It means a cannonball shattered your ankle, or a festering wound from a rusty nail lead to gangrene, or a slip from the rigging mangled your limb beyond repair. It means that, to save your life, the ship's cook-turned-surgeon had to take a saw to your body. You try to imagine the scene. No anesthetic, save for a generous helping of rum that would do more to get you drunk than to dull the agony. You'd be held down by your shipmates as the surgeon worked with his crude, often unsterilized tools. The sound of the saw grinding through bone, the searing pain, the shock. It's a horror that is almost impossible to comprehend. Survival itself was a miracle. And the wooden leg is what comes after. It's not a sleek, well-fitted prosthetic. It's a piece of wood, often carved by the ship's carpenter, attached to the stump with leather straps. It's heavy, clumsy, and agonizing to wear. The stump, often poorly healed, would be prone to sores, infections, and constant, chafing pain. This is what you see in Silas's face, not the pride of a veteran, but the weary pain of a man with a perpetual, open wound. HES, rubbing his thigh because of a phenomenon that sailors knew intimately, but had no name for phantom limb pain. The brain, confused by the loss of the limb, continues to send and receive signals from it. Silas might feel an intense itch on a foot that isn't there, or a searing cramp in toes that were thrown overboard years ago. It's a neurological ghost, a torment that no one else can see or understand. You learn a strange and sad detail about the process. The amputation saws used by ship surgeons were often frighteningly ornate, with carved ivory handles. This wasn't for hygiene or function. It was a status symbol for the surgeon, a way to project an image of professionalism and skill that the reality of their work often lacked. The tool that caused so much suffering was itself a piece of vanity. Silas sees you watching him. The ghost is walking again. He grunts, by way of explanation. He adjusts the leather straps of his prosthetic, his breath hissing through his teeth. Some days it's the itch. Some days it feels like a hot poker. Today, it's just angry. This is the reality of the pirate's most famous disfigurement. It's not about looking fearsome. It's about a lifetime of pain, discomfort, and the psychological torture of feeling a limb that no longer exists. A man with a wooden leg wasn't necessarily a better fighter, in fact. He was slower, less balanced, and more vulnerable. His place in the crew was often a step down. He might be relegated to less mobile tasks, cook's assistant, sailmender, or lookout. The ship's articles might have promised him a handsome compensation for his lost limb, but no amount of silver could buy back his mobility or erase his pain. Historians who study disability in the age of sail point out this contradiction. While popular culture romanticizes these injuries, the reality was that they often marked the end of a sailor's effective career. A pirate crew, being a pragmatic enterprise, would support an injured comrade, but his status was inevitably diminished. His brutal beauty mark was also a mark of his decline. The debate continues on how long a severely disabled pirate could realistically last in such a demanding environment. You look at the men around you with a new understanding. You see one-eyed Jack, and you think not of his intimidating gaze, but of his complete lack of depth perception, the way he must turn his whole head to see what you see with a simple glance. You see the man with the hook for a hand, another rare but real accessory, and you think of the simple things he can no longer do, like button his coat or tie a knot. These iconic symbols of the pirate identity are, in fact, monuments to suffering. They are the visible evidence of the brutal cost of this life. They are not fashion choices. They are the permanent, painful consequences of a world where a moment's bad luck can alter your body forever. The true cruel beauty of the pirate world isn't in the scars you choose to display, but in the devastating injuries you are forced to live with. And the most fearsome thing about Silas isn't his wooden leg, but the fact that he gets up and walks on it, day after day. The conversation about Silas's phantom pains makes you reconsider another classic piece of the pirate uniform, the eye patch. You see it every day on One-Eyed Jack. It's a simple, stark piece of black cloth that cuts his face into, lending him an air of mystery and menace. Like the wooden leg, it's a staple of the pirate image, a shorthand for a dangerous past. The assumption is obvious: he lost an eye in a fight, and the patch is there to cover the empty, scarred socket. But one day, you see something that makes you question that assumption. Your ship is pursuing a merchant vessel, and the crew is preparing for a potential fight. Men are checking their pistols, sharpening their cutlasses. It's a tense, busy moment. One-Eyed Jack is on deck, and just before the call to battle stations, you see him do something odd. H.E.S. standing by the hatchway that leads down into the dark, cramped quarters below. He lifts his eye patch, but not to adjust it. He switches it. He moves the patch from his scarred, blind eye to his perfectly good, seeing eye. He stands there for a moment, letting his now uncovered good eye adjust to the bright sunlight, while the other eye, the one that had been under the patch, is now ready for the darkness. Then, he plunges down the hatch into the gloom below. You're momentarily confused. Why would he cover his good eye? Later, after the chase is abandoned and then the mood on the ship calms down, you work up the courage to ask him. You expect to be told off for prying, but Jack, in a rare, communicative mode, just grunts. Below deck, he says, pointing down the hatch. It's as black as a devil's heart. Above deck, the sun LL blind you. Takes a good long while for your eyes to switch. In a fight, UAINT got a good long while. And then it clicks. The eye patch isn't just for covering an injury. It's a tool. The theory, which is quite clever, is this: by keeping one eye covered and in total darkness, a pirate could preserve his night vision in that eye when he needed to go from the bright. sun-blasted deck into the pitch-black interior of a ship during a fight to hunt for men hiding in the hold or to search for treasure in a dark cabin, he could simply switch the patch to his other eye. The eye that had been in darkness would be instantly adjusted to the low light conditions, giving him a massive tactical advantage over an enemy whose eyes were still struggling to adapt. It's a brilliant, simple, and effective life hack for the realities of naval combat. No more fumbling around blindly for several minutes while your pupils dilate. You have one eye for the day, and one eye for the night, ready to go at a moment's notice. This is a very popular theory, and one that makes a lot of sense from a practical standpoint. It turns a symbol of weakness, a missing eye, into a source of strength. It's a perfect example of pirate ingenuity. However, this is one of those areas where historical fact gets a bit murky. There is no definitive, contemporary written account from a pirate in the Golden Age explicitly stating, "I wear this patch to preserve my night vision." It's a theory that has been popularized in modern times, most famously by shows like Mythbusters, which tested and confirmed the scientific validity of the principle. So, is it a historical fact or a clever retro-engineered explanation? The academic community is divided. Some historians argue that the lack of primary source evidence means it's likely just a modern myth, a cool idea we've projected onto the past. They maintain that the vast majority of eye patches were simply for covering gruesome injuries. Others argue that just because it wasn't written down doesn't mean it wasn't practiced. It could have been a piece of common, passed down knowledge among sailors, so obvious to them that it wasn't worth recording. It's a classic absence of evidence is not evidence of absence debate. Regardless of its historical certainty, the idea itself changes your perception of One-Eyed Jack. Yes, not just a man with a disability. He might be a man who has weaponized his disability. His look is not just about a fearsome appearance, it's about tactical superiority. This adds another layer to the complex beauty standards of the pirate world. Some marks of brutality, like a wooden leg, are pure consequence, a constant source of pain. Others, like a scar, are a form of currency, a badge of honor. And then there are marks like the eye patch, which might be a combination of both the result of a past trauma or precipiced into a present-day advantage. You look at your own scar on your cheek. It's just a scar. It doesn't give you any special abilities. But the idea lingers in your mind. The idea that the most brutal marks on your body don't have to be just liabilities. With enough cleverness, maybe they can be turned into assets. It's a powerful, seductive thought. It suggests that you can take control of your own narrative of pain, that you can reshape your own brokennesses into a tool. The pirate aesthetic, you realize, is not just about what you look like. It's about what you do with what you look like. As you become more attuned to the physical realities of the men around you, you start to deconstruct another pervasive pirate myth, the swagger. In every story you'd ever heard, pirates walk with a distinctive, rolling gait. It's portrayed as a kind of cocksure, devil-may-care swagger, the walk of a man who owns the world and fears nothing. You've even seen some of the younger recruits try to imitate it, puffing out their chests and rocking on their heels. The reality, you discover, is far less glamorous and has everything to do with the tin cup, the official drink of the Royal Navy, and by extension, the entire ecosystem of the sea was grog. You'd had it in the Navy, of course, but here on the pirate ship, it's a different beast. Grog was invented out of necessity. The daily ration of pure rum given to sailors was leading to widespread drunkenness and discipline problems. So in 1740, a British admiral named Edward Vernon, nicknamed Old Grog, because of his fondness for a waterproof Girogram cloak, ordered that the rum be diluted. The official recipe was 1 part rum to 4 parts water, often with a bit of lime or lemon juice, a practice that, over time, would help combat scurvy and sometimes a little sugar. Pirates, free from the constraints of naval discipline, adopted the practice but often altered the ratios to their own, more potent preferences. On this ship, The daily ration of grog is a constant, steadying presence. It's served from a large, open barrel on deck, the grog tub, and it's one of the few things that is always available. And the men drink it all day, not necessarily to the point of incapacitating drunkenness, but enough to maintain a steady, low-level buzz. It takes the edge off the boredom, dulls the ache in their muscles, and makes the monotonous diet slightly more palatable. It's a social lubricant and a form of self-medication. The result of this constant, day-long sipping is that a significant portion of the crew is perpetually, mildly intoxicated. And this, you realize, is the true source of the pirate's swagger. It's not a confident stride, it's the slightly unsteady, carefully balanced walk of a man who is always a little bit drunk on a surface that is always slightly moving. They aren't rolling with confidence, they are compensating for a mild case of the spins. The wide-legged stance isn't a power pose, it's a way to maintain a lower center of gravity and not fall over. You see it clearly now. You see the slight overcorrection in a man's step as he crosses the deck. You see the way men will unconsciously place a hand on a railing or a wall for a brief moment to steady themselves. It's not the walk of a predator. It's the walk of a man trying very hard to act sober. A strange but true detail about life at sea was the danger of the drunken sailor's stereotype. While drinking was constant, being truly, debilitatingly drunk, especially while on watch or during a storm, was a serious offense that could get you flogged or marooned. The goal was to maintain a functional buzz, not to become a liability. So, this swagger was part of an act trying to look capable and in control while under the influence. It was a performance within a performance. This discovery is almost comical. Another piece of the fearsome pirate image revealed to be something mundane, even pathetic. Their terrifying reputation is built on a foundation of scars from accidents, fashion from stolen rags, and a swagger born from cheap rum. Historians have long discussed the role of alcohol in the age of sail. Was the high-functioning alcoholism of sailors a cause of their rebellious nature, or a consequence of the brutal conditions they endured? It's likely both. The grog was a tool of control for the Navy, keeping sailors placated. For pirates, it was a cherished symbol of their freedom to drink when and how they pleased. But that freedom had a physical cost, and it was written in the way they walked. This new understanding also reframes the violence you've witnessed. The brawls that break out over card games. The sudden flashes of temper, how much of it is fueled by the constant simmer of alcohol. In their blood, the legendary bravery of pirates charging into a fight, is it courage, or a drunken disregard for consequences? The line becomes blurry. You think about your own consumption. You drink the grog with everyone else. It's part of the social ritual, and you have to admit, it helps. It makes the itchy tar on your scalp a little less maddening. It makes the prospect of another meal of salted beef a little less grim. You feel the familiar, warm haze settle over you as the day wears on. And then you stand up and walk across the deck, and you feel it. That slight, almost imperceptible need to concentrate on the simple act of walking a straight line. You catch your reflection in a rain puddle and see your own silhouette. You are walking with that same rolling gait. You have the swagger, and it has nothing to do with confidence, and everything to do with the rum in your belly. The look, the feel, the very way you move, it's all part of the costume. And the costume is slowly consuming you from the inside out. The costume becomes your skin. The role becomes your reality. Years begin to blur, marked not by calendars, but by the seasons of raiding and the long, lazy spells spent in pirate havens like Nassau or Port Royal. The boy who deserted the Navy is a ghost, a story you can barely recall. You are this new person now, forged in the crucible of this life. Your face, once a source of shame for its smoothness, is now a testament to your journey. The scar on your cheek is the first chapter. Now there are others. A puckered mark on your forearm where a splinter from a cannon blast tore through the flesh. A thin, white line above your eyebrow from the glancing blow of a grappling hook. Your face is a map, and every line on it tells a story of survival. It's a map that other men can read and understand. It grants you a status that requires no words. Your body is a landscape of the pirate life. Your hands are permanently calloused. The skin as tough as old leather. Your back carries a constant, dull ache from years of hard labor and sleeping in a hammock. The tarring your hair is a long-gone memory one day. In a fit of frustration and with the help of a lot of grease and a sharp knife, you simply shaved it all off and have kept your hair cropped short ever since. But the phantom itch sometimes returns in your dreams. This fearsome appearance, this brutal beauty that you worked so hard to cultivate, has served its purpose. It has kept you safe within the violent hierarchy of the crew. It has intimidated your enemies, often making them surrender without a fight. It has earned you a full share of the plunder and a respected place on the quarterdeck. You have become everything you once aspired to be: a hardened, successful pirate. But a chilling realization begins to dawn on you. This identity, this face that you have so carefully constructed, is not a costume you can take off. It's a brand, a permanent, indelible mark. And it is not just a tool for your life as a pirate, it's a cage that prevents you from ever being anything else. The first time you truly feel the bars of this cage is when you try to walk through a civilized town. Your ship has pulled into a port that, while tolerant of pirates, is not a lawless haven like Nassau. It's a place with governors, magistrates, and merchants who pay lip service to the king. As you walk down the street, people don't just move out of your way. They recoil. Mothers pull their children close. Shopkeepers watch you with narrowed, fearful eyes. Your face, which on the ship is a sign of respect, is the remark of a predator. You are a monster walking among them. They don't see a man, they see a walking, talking Jolly Roger. You try to go into a tavern for a quiet drink, a place that isn't filled with your own kind. The moment you step through the door, a hush falls over the room. The air becomes thick with fear and hostility. The tavern keeper serves you with a trembling hand, his eyes refusing to meet yours. You are an outcast. Your appearance, which was your key to belonging in one world, is your permanent banishment from another. This is the pirate's paradox. To succeed in their world, they had to make themselves terrifying. But in doing so, they made it impossible for themselves to ever reintegrate into the society they had left behind. They were trapped. Their only home was the ship. Their only family the crew. This is a point historians often stress when discussing the motivations for piracy. While some men may have dreamed of getting rich and retiring, the reality for most was that there was no exit strategy. A man known to be a pirate, his face likely on a wanted poster, could not simply take his earnings and buy a quiet farm. He would be recognized, captured, and hanged. The very things that made him a successful pirate, his fearsome reputation and appearance, were also his death sentence. The debate continues: was this a tragic consequence? Or did pirates actively embrace this no-way-back reality as a core part of their identity? You feel this trap closing in on you. The freedom you sought when you deserted the Navy has become its own kind of prison. You are free from the rules of kings and empires, but you are a slave to the face in the mirror. You can never be anonymous again. You see it in the older men, like Silas. He never talks about a life before or after piracy, because for him, there isn't one. This is it. The ship is his entire world, from now until the day he dies in a battle, or from a fever, or simply of old age. If he is lucky, there is a deep, profound sadness in that realization. The black flag promised a world of infinite possibility, but it has delivered a life sentence. You walk back to the ship, the hostile stares of the townsfolk like physical blows. You step back onto the deck, and you feel the tension in your shoulders release. Here, your face is normal. Here, your scars are a resume, not a condemnation. Here, you are home. And as the ship pulls away from the port, leaving the civilized world behind, you feel a profound sense of relief mixed with a deep, chilling despair. You are safe. You are trapped. Your face, you're beautiful. brutal face, has made its choice for you. The cage of your reputation becomes terrifyingly real. It's no longer just about the hostile stares of strangers in port. It's about a piece of paper, nailed to a post in the public square of a colonial capital. It's a wanted poster, and it has your face on it. You don't see it yourself. A new recruit, sent ashore to gather rumors and supplies, sees it and reports back, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and awe. "It's the whole crew," he says, his eyes wide. "The captain, Silas, even you." He describes the poster. It's an official proclamation from the governor, offering a handsome bounty for the capture, dead or alive, of the notorious pirates from your ship. And next to each name is a crude, wood-cut portrait. The recruit's description of your likeness is a punch to the gut. "They drew you with the big scar," he says, almost excitedly, "and they made your beard look all wild and black. You look mean." In that moment, you see the full, horrifying arc of your transformation. You have become a caricature. The image you so carefully and painfully constructed has been stolen from you, twisted into a grotesque cartoon, and plastered in public squares for all to see. The state, the very entity you rebelled against, is now using your own aesthetic against you. They are using your brutal beauty to sell your death. Your scar, your badge of honor, is now your primary identifying feature for the hangman. Your fearsome beard, a symbol of your pirate identity, is now exhibited in the case for your execution. Everything you did to fit in, to survive, to build a reputation within your world, has now made you a marked man in the wider world. The practice of putting bounties on pirates was a key strategy used by governments to break the back of the Golden Age. It turned the sea against itself. It sowed distrust among pirate crews. Would your shipmate betray you for a sack of gold? It also empowered a new kind of sea hunter, the privateer turned pirate hunter. Men like Wood S. Rogers, the very man who would eventually become the governor of the Bahamas and systematically dismantle the pirate Republic of Nassau, were authorized by the crown to hunt down and eliminate pirates for profit. The wanted posters were a crucial tool in this war of attrition. The portraits were, by modern standards, laughably inaccurate. They were crude, exaggerated, and often based on third-hand descriptions. The famous, and likely apocryphal, story claims that the iconic, demonic images of Blackbird were so effective that some sailors believed he was genuinely a monster, not a man. But accuracy wasn't the point. The point was to create a recognizable symbol of villainy. The artists would seize on the most prominent features, describe to them a unique scar, a missing limb, a particularly wild beard, and exaggerate them. They were creating folk devils. This is a point of debate for art historians and social historians. Were these portraits intended as genuine attempts at identification? Or were they primarily propaganda tools designed to demonize pirates and justify the state's violent response to them? The answer is almost certainly a bit of both. The news of the wanted poster sends a ripple of mixed emotions through the crew. For some of the younger, more foolish men, it's a source of immense pride. To have a bounty on your head is the ultimate confirmation of your fearsome reputation. It means you are important enough for a governor to personally want you dead. They brag about the price on their head as if it were a measure of their worth. But for the older men, like Silas, it's a death knell. He just grunts when he hears the news. Price on your head just means you can't ever stop running, he mutters, and there's a finality in his tone that chills you to the bone. You feel that child deep in your gut. This is the end game. The world is shrinking. The havens are becoming traps. The authorities are getting more organized, more ruthless. The freedom of the open sea, which once seemed limitless, now feels like a dwindling patch of unclaimed territory, surrounded on all sides by the gallows. You think of your portrait, a crude drawing of a man with a fearsome scar. It is the ultimate, bitter irony. You spent years trying to create this face, to make it look tough and unbreakable. And you succeeded so well that now it's the very thing that will get you killed. You have become so good at playing the monster that you can no longer convince anyone you are a man. The mask has fused to your skin, and now the world wants the mask for its collection. The wanted posters are a sign of the changing tides. The world that allowed piracy to flourish is disappearing. The great European powers, having concluded their endless wars for a time, are turning their attention back to the seas. The Navy, once a source of disgruntled recruits for pirate ships, is now their hunter. The colonial governors, once corrupt and easily bribed, are being replaced by hardliners like Wood S. Rogers, armed with royal pardons and a fleet of warships. The Golden Age of Piracy was, in reality, a very brief window in history, lasting roughly from the 1690 seconds to the late 1720 seconds. It was a perfect storm of conditions, a surplus of trained sailors after major wars, a boom in lucrative colonial trade, and a lack of effective state control in the waters of the Caribbean and beyond. Now, that storm is passing, the sky is clearing, and for you and your crew, there is nowhere left to hide. You feel the change in the very rhythm of your life. The long, lazy periods in pirate havens are over. Ports that once welcomed you with open arms now have forts with cannons pointed out to sea. The taverns where you once traded stories are now filled with whispers of royal pardons and the names of pirates who have been captured and hanged. The royal pardon is the most insidious weapon of all. It's an offer from the king: lay down your arms, renounce your life of piracy, and you will be forgiven for your past crimes. It's a tempting offer, a life raft for a drowning man, and it works. It sows division and mistrust. You look at your shipmates, men you have fought and bled with, and you wonder, who is thinking about taking the pardon, who is tired enough of this life to trade his cutlass for a clean slate? This period, often called the end of the Golden Age, is a subject of intense study for historians. What exactly caused its demise? Was it the overwhelming force of the British Royal Navy? Was it the effectiveness of the pardons in breaking the pirates' morale and solidarity, or did piracy, in a sense, just become economically unsustainable as trade routes became better protected? The consensus is that it was a combination of all these factors. The pirates were, in essence, victims of their own success. They became such a disruptive force that the empires had no choice but to unite and crush them. On your ship, the mood is grim. The easy camaraderie has been replaced by a quiet, gnawing anxiety. The swagger is gone, replaced by the weary gait of hunted men. The flamboyant, stolen clothes seem tawdry now, the colors faded. The brutal beauty standards that once defined you now feel like a curse. Your scar, your fearsome reputation, they don't just make you a target for the law, they make you ineligible for the pardon. The offer is for the common sailor, the man who can claim he was forced into the life, not for the notorious figures, the leaders, the men whose faces are on the posters. You are too famous to be forgiven. The captain makes a desperate decision. He announces a plan for one last great prize, a treasure fleet, a convoy of Spanish galleons laden with silver from the New World. It's a suicidal plan, a fool's errand, but it's born of desperation. The thinking is that with enough wealth, you could truly disappear, buy a new life, a new name, a new face, somewhere far away where the king's arm cannot reach, that everyone knows the truth. This is not a plan for retirement. This is a plan for a glorious death. It's a choice to go out in a blaze of cannon fire rather than at the end of a rope. It's the final, tragic performance of the pirate code. A good short life is better than a long, boring one. As the ship turns towards the heavily patrolled waters where the treasure fleet is said to sail, you feel a sense of grim resignation. You look at the men around you. One-eyed Jack, his face a stoic mask. Mary, her expression unreadable, constantly checking the horizon. Silas, his wooden leg propped up on a coil of rope, staring at his own gnarled hands. You have all become the monsters you pretended to be. You have cultivated an image of brutal fearlessness, and now you are forced to live up to it, to its ultimate, fatal conclusion. The aesthetic you adopted for survival has become a script for your own demise. There is no other way for this story to end. The Golden Age is over, and you are its leftovers, the ghosts of a bygone era, sailing towards your own extinction. The tide has gone out, and you are all stranded. The sea is an irrevingual calm, the sky vast, empty blue. The days leading up to the inevitable confrontation are quiet, heavy with unspoken goodbyes. The usual boisterous energy of the crew has evaporated, replaced by a solemn, focused intensity. Men clean their weapons not with bravado, but with the quiet reverence of a last rite. They mend their tattered, stolen clothes, patching up the silks and velvets as if preparing for their own funeral. In these quiet moments, you find yourself staring at your own reflection. You no longer need the tarnished silver mirror from the loot chest. You can see yourself in the polished blade of your cutlass, a distorted, elongated version of the man you've become. The face that stares back at you is a stranger. It's not the boy who fled the Navy, all soft edges and naive hope. It's not even the young man who eagerly coated his hair in tar to fit in. This face is something else entirely. It's a landscape carved by sun, wind, and violence. The scar on your cheek is no longer a distinct feature. It's just one part of a whole, a line in a complex drawing. Your eyes, squinting against the perpetual glare of the sun on the water, are framed by a fine web of lines. They are the eyes of a much older man, weary and wary. Your skin has the tough, weathered texture of old sailcloth. Your beard, which you let grow back after shaving off the tar, is thick and streaked with gray, though you are not yet old. The sea ages you and dog years. You don't recognize this person. You know his history. You carry his memories. You feel the dull ache in his shoulder and the phantom itch of his long-gone affectations. But the man himself, the essence of him, feels alien. When did this transformation complete itself? Was there a single moment, a tipping point where the costume became the man, or was it a slow, gradual erosion, a death by 1,000 small compromises? You look at your hands. They are not your hands. They are the hands of a killer, a thief, a survivor. They are strong, calloused, and scarred. They know how to tie a knot, fire a pistol, and wield a sword. They have hauled ropes in a hurricane, dragged chests of gold across sandy beaches, and held a dying shipmate. They are capable, brutal hands. You don't remember having hands like these. This experience, this sense of dissociation from one's own hardened image, is a psychological state that historians can only speculate about. It's a form of depersonalization, perhaps a coping mechanism for a life filled with trauma and moral compromise. To survive, you had to become someone else. The problem is that you succeeded. And now, the original you is lost, a casualty of the long, slow war of becoming. The debate over pirate identity, whether they were rebels, criminals, or victims of circumstance, feels moot. Looking at your reflection, you see that the answer is all of the above. They were men who were erased and rewritten by the life they chose. You see the same sense of alienation in the others. You see Silas, the old salt, sometimes staring at his own wooden leg with a look of complete bewilderment, as if he can't quite believe it belongs to him. You see Mary, in a quiet moment, touching her own face, her expression distant, as if she's searching for the girl she left behind so long ago. The brutal beauty standard of the pirate world was never just about appearance. It was about identity. It was a requirement to systematically destroy your old self and build a new one from the wreckage. The goal was to become a person capable of thriving in this environment. The unintended consequence was that you became a person incapable of existing anywhere else, even inside your own skin. As the sun begins to set, casting a long, golden path across the water, the lookout's cry rings out. Sail, ho! This is it, the Spanish fleet. the final act. You take one last look at your reflection in the sword. The stranger looks back at you, his expression grim, resolved. He raises the cutlass, the movement fluid, practiced. He is ready. You are not sure if you are, but it doesn't matter anymore. You are not the one who has to fight this battle. He is, and you are trapped inside him, a silent passenger in a body that is no longer your own, sailing into the bloody twilight of an era. The battle is not the glorious, chaotic brawl of your imagination. It is a thing of methodical, industrial violence. The Spanish ships, prepared and professional, do not panic. They turn, their movements coordinated, forming a wall of cannon ports. The world becomes a symphony of noise, the deep, gut-shaking roar of the cannons, the high-pitched scream of the wind through rigging that is being shot to pieces, and the splintering crash of wood as cannonballs tear through the hull. Your ship, smaller and more agile, weaves and darts, trying to find an opening. But it's like a dog nipping at the heels of a bull. You return fire, your own cannons adding to the din, but for every one of your shots, they return 3. The air fills with a thick, acrid smoke that stings the eyes and chokes the lungs. It is Blackbeard's terror theater made real, but this time, you are all unwilling actors in the smoky hell. Men fall. They don't die with heroic last words. They are simply there one moment and gone the next, erased by a cannonball or crushed by a falling spar. You see a man you shared grog with just last night vaporized, a red mist marking where he once stood. The deck is slick with blood and seawater. Amidst the chaos, you move on instinct. Load, fire, swab, load. The repetitive motions of the cannon crew are the only thing that keeps your mind from shattering. The carefully constructed image of the fearsome pirate is stripped away by the sheer, overwhelming terror of it all. No one is posturing now. No one is swaggering. Everyone is just a small, fragile creature trying to survive a storm of iron and wood. Your ship takes a direct hit to the mainmast. It groans, shudders, and then comes crashing down. A catastrophic failure of wooden rope that smashes a third of your crew. The ship is crippled, helpless. The Spanish galleon, sensing the kill, moves in closer. The command is given to repel boarders. The last, desperate act of defiance. You grab your cutlass, your hands steady despite the hammering in your chest. This is the moment your entire life has been building towards. Every scar, every weapon, every performance of masculinity, it was all practice for this. The Spanish soldiers swarm over the railing, their armor gleaming, their faces grim. The fight is a close, brutal, and personal affair. It's not a duel, it's a meat grinder. You swing your cutlass, the heavy blade feeling like an extension of your arm. You parry a thrust, your opponent's face just inches from yours. You see the fear in his eyes, and you know he sees the same in yours. In this moment, you are not a pirate and he is not a soldier. You are just 2 men on the edge of death. You see Silas, his back against the broken mast, using his wooden leg to trip a soldier before bringing his own sword down. You see Mary, a dervish of controlled fury, fighting with a dagger in each hand, her movements economical and deadly. You see One-Eyed Jack, his patch gone, both his good eye and his scarred socket wide open to the horror around him. They are dying, all of them, but they are dying as the legends they chose to be. You take a deep breath, the smoke burning your lungs, and you charge back into the fray. You don't know if you will live or die. You don't know if any of it was worth it. The pain, the filth, the fear, the freedom you chased seems like a distant, childish dream. You think back to that very first choice, the one to leave the Navy and chase the black flag. You sought a life of liberty, free from the rigid rules and powdered wigs of the Empire. And what did you get? You got a new set of rules, a new uniform, a new kind of prison, a prison made of scars, toil, and reputation. You traded one form of servitude for another. The academic debate, about whether pirates were rebels or just criminals feels painfully simple now. They were just men who made a choice, and then had to live with the weight of it every single day. A Spanish officer lunges at you, his sword a silver blur. You meet his attack, the clang of steel ringing in your ears. You look into his eyes, and in them, you see your own reflection one last time. It's the face of the stranger, the monster, the pirate, and you finally understand. The freedom was never in the destination, the treasure. The retirement, the freedom, what little there was in the choosing. In the brief, fleeting moment you decided to become this person. All the rest, the brutal, beautiful, painful rest was just the price you had to pay. And now, the noise begins to fade. The sharp clang of steel, the roar of the cannons, the screams of the dying, they all recede, softening into a dull, distant hum. The acrid smoke that filled your lungs now feels like a gentle, rolling fog, cool and without scent. The splintered, blood-slick deck beneath your feet gives way to something softer, something that yields, like moss or deep sand. You can feel the weight of your choices, the heavy cutlass, the burden of your reputation, all of it just lifting, floating away from you like ash on a warm breeze. The tension in your shoulders, a knot you've carried for years, finally unwinds. The phantom itch on your scalp is gone. The dull ache in your old wounds has vanished. There is only a profound and encompassing stillness. You feel a gentle rocking, not the violent lurch of a shipping battle, but the soothing, rhythmic sway of a hammock on a calm night. The harsh glare of the sun is gone, replaced by a soft, diffused light, like twilight seen through a thick canopy of leaves. You are drifting now, no longer a combatant, no longer a survivor, no longer even a man with a name and a scarred face. You are just a consciousness, floating on a quiet, peaceful tide. The story is over. The performance is done. The heavy costume of your life has been laid aside, and all that is left is rest. You are sailing now on a different sea, a sea of dreams, where the only thing required of you is to let go, to simply be. The end of the article. Good night.